Hi, Nick. Welcome to Legal Practice Intelligence.
Thanks very much, David. Great to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. Nick, for those folks, and I doubt there's not many who would not know who you are, but if you want to introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. So my name's Nick Abrahams, and I'm the global co-leader of the digital transformation practice at Norton Rose Fulbright. And I'm also the co-founder of an online legal business called LawPath.
Oh, excellent. Very good. I mean, and I know I've been noticing a lot of your articles on and shares on LinkedIn as well around blockchain, crypto, metaverse, and those sorts of things. But I guess that sort of prompted us to chat today, and also enlightening folks in the law industry as well. So I guess from a layperson's terms, I mean, what's a helicopter view of things like blockchain, crypto, NFT, and metaverse, like for folks that hear this bouncing around, but what's it all mean?
Sure. It's really part of a movement which has a generic title of Web3. And so what Web3 is this concept of the decentralized internet. So what we've seen with Web2 is the rise of the big tech players, and they've sort of done a great job of creating very strong businesses that we sort of all go to a sort of more of a centralized experience. Whereas what Web3 is about is the decentralized experience, and that is enabled by blockchain. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people think of cryptocurrency as really just being associated with illegal behavior. In fact, I do a session for people which is called 10 things you can do with crypto that don't involve buying drugs on the dark web, because there's just a lot of things that you can use cryptocurrency for now. Obviously, there's direct payment, and folks like AT&T have allowed the ability to pay in crypto. We've seen countries like El Salvador adopt cryptocurrency, or at least Bitcoin, as a form of legal tender. And then even businesses like the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, so Australia's largest bank, on its app is now about to allow crypto trading. So we know that crypto and the whole of Web3 is moving from mystery to Main Street. And so we've had cryptocurrency now for over 10 years, and then that's enabled by this blockchain technology, which at its core is really just a way of being able to issue someone digital proof of ownership of something that's fully trackable and so forth. So you've got cryptocurrency was the start of that, and then we saw the rise in the last 18 months of decentralized finance, which has been an absolute game changer really for cryptocurrency, because it moved cryptocurrency from just being a store of value style asset. If you think of Bitcoin the same as gold, so not necessarily about the transactional value of it, but it's a store of value. I know there's a lot of people who don't like thinking of it like that, but anyway, that's an analogy that gets used. What decentralized finance has done is given the ability to actually work with cryptocurrency in the same way that you would work with normal fiat currency. So you can buy, borrow, and sell it and invest with it in much the same way that you can do with normal fiat currencies. And so that's quite a game changer, because you've got the ability to what's called stake your Bitcoin or your other cryptocurrency. You can stake it, and that means you give it to a particular application, and they will give you an interest return. So you get a coupon on that, not dissimilar to putting money in a bank. So you might be getting 8% or more, and when real life, when real banks are giving 0%. So that's, we've had decentralized finance grow out of that, and then the latest boom is of course NFTs and the Metaverse, and NFTs are really just a way of, as I said, it's a digital ownership of something, and it seems an incredibly obtuse concept when you think, well, people are paying millions of dollars for these NFTs, which is really just a JPEG of in one case, a bored ape, and people are paying a fortune for that. And then you've got that expanding into the metaverse, and the metaverse is really just this concept of the embodied internet, where we will experience, like like meetings or
Mm.
shopping, we will experience it more as a full body experience. And, I guess the biggest lead in that is that Facebook has so seen the importance of this that it changed the name of its parent company from Facebook to Meta. And they actually invested $10 billion in 2021 on their metaverse projects.
Wow.
And I mean, actually just recently, they've had a massive slide in their share price because their traditional social media business is under tremendous pressure as they've seen people move off into particularly TikTok, but also other metaverse type lands, which combine a gaming experience with a social experience. And so Mark Zuckerberg clearly sees the future of social media is not this sort of two-dimensional experience that we have with Facebook, but it's about a full-bodied, immersed experience and associated perhaps with gaming and other activities in the metaverse.
It's actually really interesting because you look at the business cases that are actually sort of surround the metaverse. I'm a bit obsessed with it actually, but and I know you and I have talked about this sort of previously, and but I think to myself, of attending a conference, I mean, it's all very well and good with what's been going on with the last 2 years with the pandemic and things to sort of Zoom call. But I mean, you think to yourself, in a metaverse, you can actually meet people in a sort of in a sort of serendipitous way. Like you just bump into people like you would at a conference and talk to them and actually sort of meet people you wouldn't, the same way you'd meet them physically.
I mean, to be frank, I struggle with sort of the immediate use case, for like the conference style use case. Not to say that won't happen. I think that it will, but I feel like this is going to grow very fast. I mean, it's a Generation Z proposition, really. They're not focused on folks of my age, but I think what we will see is it will grow out of a comfort with, if you look at Roblox, which is one of the big metaverse players, so that's a gaming experience, but it's also a social interactive experience. And actually what they say is that people are gaming on that, around 50% of the time. Other times they're just vibing, as they call it, or cruising around the metaverse. So that is an experience which would be, not regarded as particularly attractive to many folks, I guess, who are listening to this. But that's not the target market for metaverse right at the moment. I think it's quite a shock to move from a Zoom style meeting into an avatar based meeting. And I have been sort of around this world for a while, and we had 7 or 8 years, we had Second Life, and that was a proposition which it would replace meeting rooms and replace conferences. And I can't help myself. I drink the Kool-Aid, and I was a huge believer in what Second Life would bring, and it collapsed really precipitously after the FBI investigated it and stopped the pornography and the gambling on it. So, but I think why has it changed now? Why is the metaverse different now? I think because of the ability to buy and own your own assets within a metaverse land. So you can buy virtual land. It was reported on CNBC just 2 days ago that last year, 2021, there was more than $500 million of virtual land sold. So you can own that. You can own what you create, and then you've got a lot of creators within that environment. And I was speaking to the co-founder of one of the big metaverse lands called the Sandbox, and they actually the leader in virtual land sales. They accounted for over 64% of that $500 million last year, and he was very proud of the fact they've created over 1,000 jobs in the Sandbox. Not people working for the Sandbox, people working for themselves. Wow! And they're either building things for other people in Sandbox. There's a lot of fashion designers, virtual fashion designers, virtual architects, and so forth. So. As unusual as this entire world will sound to many people, I think that it's very much something for Generation Z and beyond. They will be very familiar with this and be very comfortable with that environment and with meeting within that environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible because I saw the article you shared this morning, I think on LinkedIn around real estate, and reading that people are buying apartment blocks for $1,000 in I think it's called Euphoria or something like that's one of the other ones that are sort of springing up, and other ones as well. People are putting real money down for this stuff, which is incredible. I mean, that's getting a place next to Snoop Dogg and all the other folks as well on the Sandbox, I think. But so why does it actually matter to law firms? Like, why is this important for law firms to know about?
Yeah. So I think like anything, if we're going to advise on this stuff, then we should understand how it works. It's very difficult to be an advisor in the space without understanding how crypto works. Let's just look at crypto. So I'm not a programmer, and I don't believe lawyers have to become programmers. I'm a big believer the technology is coming to lawyers, and we'll be able to, using what's called no-code solutions, be able to do the sort of things that we want to do as lawyers without being programmers. But what I have found with advising particularly in cryptocurrency and DeFi, is that it's almost impossible to give advice unless you understand how the technology works to a degree. And as I said, you don't have to be a programmer, but you probably have to have engaged with the technology to understand, how does this work? And then you have to read, there's these things called white papers, which really describe how the solution is going to operate. And so you have to be able to interpret the white paper, and then you have to take all of that along with an understanding of what the user experience might be, and then look at or try to apply, the regulatory framework to that, and the tax laws for that. And you do need a good couple of headache pills after that, because it becomes it's a very complicated web that is brought together by all of those different things. So I think first and foremost, law firms need to be involved. There's loads of unicorns out there in the Web3 space. Look at Dapper Labs or any of those. But these companies have gotten to $7, $8, $10 billion worth of value in the space of 5 years. So if you're a law firm that wants to be looking to the future and looking to advise the big companies of the future, then I think you do need to be involved. And full credit, PwC, not their legal division, but PwC out of Hong Kong has actually bought a plot of land in the Sandbox. They haven't put anything on it yet, but interesting to see what they're proposing to do with that. So full credit to them. I've always resisted building something. So back when we had Second Life, there was a lot of pressure on that we should build a law firm in the virtual world. And I'll talk about that perhaps a little bit later. But I'm not sure that's right now that's what the opportunities necessarily present in terms of if you've got to prioritize resources, which we all do. But I think being involved in it, and so maybe just to give a couple of clear examples, I did a wonderful transaction just recently where an organisation was, and it was of some significance in the Web3 space. They incentivize their staff not only by employee share option plans, but also by token option plans.
Wow.
So what tokens are is basically when you a Bitcoin, for an example of a token. So we talk about Ethereum and Ether. Ether is a token in Sandbox. Sand is a token. So it's sort of like a currency of that particular platform. And so, what was very clear is that the employee of this particular organization valued the token option plan more highly than they valued the equity plan. So, and the reason for that is quite clear, because the problem with equity in an unlisted company is you got to sit around until you get an exit as an employee. Whereas if you're getting given tokens, then as soon as they vest, you can sell them into the market. So that's something for all of us to think about. That's completely changing the world, because tokens are in effect another form of equity, and we need to think about how can our clients benefit from that. And then we've got distributed autonomous organizations, which if you had have asked me 18 months ago, I would have said we were a very long way from that being a legally recognized entity. But the concept here is that you take a traditional private company structure, and rather than it being a private company as recognized by the laws in whatever geography, it's actually a series of so-called smart contracts. So it's programming that dictates how that organization can act, and it would in effect be a specific legal entity. And the Australian government has announced that they will be investigating that and coming up potentially with some laws around that this year.
Brilliant.
And they're very serious about that. I would have thought that was very odd, because we've had a proprietary limited structure for hundreds of years, and this would be the most dramatic change. So there's some interesting work around in decentralized. I didn't work on this project, but I've got an interview with on a webinar I'm doing coming up with it's the global marketing leader of Penfolds, the wine company.
Wow.
And what they did is they had 2 NFT drops, and what they did was they basically, you buy an NFT, so a non-fungible token, and that gives you the right to this bottle of premium wine. And the bottle of premium wine is actually held in a wine cellar in Singapore, and then you can either gift or trade or redeem that NFT. And when you think about it from Penfold's point of view, it's been fantastic, because gifting is their biggest market for premium wine. And it's very hard to gift wine because it's an awkward asset. You've got to keep it at the right temperature, and it's made of glass, obviously. So there is a fantastic example of how NFTs can move beyond the sort of the crazy stuff of people selling JPEGs of rocks for millions of dollars. It's got a real use case.
I mean, that's quite interesting, because what you've got is a situation where, I mean, if you were a private tech company, and another route to getting finance could be actually issuing tokens.
Oh, well, I see it all the time. Yeah. So there was a huge run in what's called ICOs, or initial coin offerings, about 18 months or 2 years ago. So we acted on a few of those. It was it's a very fraught area. There's a number of players who may not have quite the ethical standards that you would want from a client, but that we were lucky we picked some good ones. And quite literally, ICOs, initial coin offerings, are definitely a way for companies to raise capital. And in fact, any of the Web3 plays that we're working with now, they would have done some sort of coin offering. It's sort of a standard approach that you would do a coin offering. And so there you go. So you've got, conceptually, you've got equity, which is more traditional, and a lot of laws governing how equity can be issued and so forth. And then once you start talking about a coin offering, you don't have things like constitutions and shareholders agreements and all those sorts of good things, and registering it with the ASIC in our case in Australia. It's basically, you've got this coin offering, and it's subject only to what's called a white paper. Obviously, there are securities laws that need to be looked at as to how those offerings work together with securities laws. But we're starting to see laws around the world sort of becoming more specific in relation to this. But there's definitely opportunities for raising capital by way of coin offering, for sure.
So I guess, what do you sort of see as opportunities for law firms in this sort of area?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, it is around how identifying those quality Web3 companies and working with them. And I say that because it's a non-trivial task to figure out who's legitimate and who is not legitimate. And I think for any law firm, you want to be very careful who you work with. So we have quite a significant process that we go through bringing on new Web3 companies. But the opportunities there are remarkable. And as I say, for any younger lawyers out there, and I think at my age, most lawyers who are listening to this are younger than me, but for any younger lawyers, if you are looking for a way to make a mark in the legal world, then I can highly recommend getting an understanding of the metaverse, NFTs, crypto, Because generally speaking, most people find it quite foreign. So you'll have less competition there,
Yeah.
and the ability to actually leapfrog where you might have older partners and so forth who are well known in the M&A space or whatever. You can actually build a reputation very quickly in the Web3 space, and also get to know the founders, because for every lawyer in private practice, what's critical is you've obviously got to be a great lawyer, but you have to have a network. You have to have this ability to generate work.
Yeah.
And if you're a younger lawyer, you can mix in those. There's endless chat rooms and ways to meet these founders. And because it's also new, you can get access to people who are incredibly successful and worth a lot of money quite easily, and build your network that way. And frankly, there's so few lawyers operating in this space. You could rise to prominence very quickly. So I think that's the great opportunity. I'm not, as I said before, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of setting up a law firm in a virtual world. I haven't quite figured out why that would make sense. But I think something to think about is, what is the sort of organic reason for having some sort of existence in a metaverse place? And so that to me would be, is there some sort of automated solution that you provide in the metaverse that in some way facilitates agreements between people in the metaverse to do whatever it is that they're doing? So I wouldn't look at it so much from the point of view of, gee, how can we take our sort of real world experience and make it work in the metaverse? I'd be thinking more, okay, well, the metaverse is a replica of reality, and we know in reality people have disputes. So is that a solution? Is there a metaverse based solution to metaverse disputes? Who knows? People obviously buy and sell things in the metaverse, and they're buying them off sites like OpenSeas and so forth. Are there other ways to document private transactions? And would that be something that you would need a law firm to do? And when you think about these big, you mentioned Snoop Dogg, there's been a lot of money spent in the sandbox on Snoop Dogg's massive estate, and so they have lots of concerts there, and so then Warner Music also has a big estate that they're about to launch in the sandbox. Those assets are significant, and they'll be wanting to rent them out, and in fact there's people who are representing sort of virtual stars and so forth. So there's a whole range of different legal arrangements. Maybe that's the opportunity.
I mean, if you're a firm that I guess has some clients that need advice on Web3 and Metaverse, etc., and things, do you collaborate with other law firms in terms of providing advice and work with all their clients?
Yeah. No, certainly be happy to assist people. Yeah, there's no worries, and I'm always just happy to have a chat to folks and give them some guidance if they need it, because we're all learning in this space, and it's really about finding like-minded people. But yeah, very happy to to help anyone out if they need it.
I guess, what do you see the future looking like in a metaverse sort of world? I guess in law and metaverse and those sorts of things.
Yeah, so I'm very different, I think, to most folks, because there's this recurrent theme of the death of lawyers, and being a lawyer is a bad job because it's not going to be around. I just don't believe that's the case. In my other business, LawPath, we spent the last 7 years trying to figure out how to automate legal and make it simple for people to access legal solutions. It's incredibly hard to bend what it is that we do as lawyers to simple automation. So I'm not a believer that we're going to have this point in time where everyone's going to go to this sort of Oracle style legal solution and it will tell us everything, because it is frankly incredibly hard to do that. So I'm very bullish. I'm very bullish on the opportunities for the profession. I believe it because I think that the world is getting more complicated.
Yeah.
And lawyers thrive on complexity. So, if we just look at the metaverse, and as I mentioned, there's a whole range of different skills that you have to bring to bear when you're advising on crypto, metaverse, NFTs, etc. And that's, the ability to understand, a bit about technology, how white papers work and so forth. And so that means there's now another branch of law effectively. And, the whole tokenization of assets. So we've actually created another branch of law. So whilst we might have lost some work down at the, conveyancing and so forth, that's getting automated. So, the more, I guess, mundane work, I think humanity continues to evolve and needs for lawyers continue to happen, and we're getting more laws. So, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for everyone. I mean, you do have to be prepared to continue learning because it sometimes bends the mind a little bit, but I think it's great. I think there's a wonderful opportunity out there. So provided that people are prepared to focus on where the work is going to come from, rather than, it's easy for us to get a little bit stuck in our ways and just do what we want to do.
Brilliant. Nick, one last question for you. I guess if people want to know more and want to learn and understand more about NFTs, metaverse, crypto, blockchain, where would they actually go? What would you suggest?
Yeah, well, you're very welcome to follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. So you can check that out. I post every day on those with updates on what's happening in that world. And then I think that really there's so much to learn from online, and there's a whole range of news sources for crypto and metaverse related things. So there's Cointelegraph. There's just that many, DeFi Pulse. There's that many. Just Google and you will find. I would just read that stuff. It will sound very unfamiliar at the beginning. I think there's concepts there really challenging to understand, particularly in DeFi. So I would just continue to read. And one thing I would implore people not to do is definitely, don't be quick to invest, as in real money, in crypto and NFTs. I think that it's a very, very volatile market. NFTs particularly, it's been crazy to see what's happening there. So I think, make sure you've done, probably 40 or 50 hours of research before you actually, make the first step into investing in crypto or NFTs, because it's just and once again, I'm not, and this is not financial advice. So I'm not recommending that anyone does invest in it, but it's I think just read up lots of stuff online around this, and you'll find that pretty soon you'll know as much as most people, if not more.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Nick, for your time today. Really appreciate it, and talk with you soon.
Great. Thanks, David. Lovely to chat. Thanks, everyone. Best wishes.